Hi and welcome to part 2 of the Hillman 1150 Dream engine. So last time you saw it, it was in pieces. We hadn't quite finished assembling it. Now it's all together. It's on the dyno. It's done most of its running, although we've got the final runs to do yet. Then we'll make a video of the engine doing its final tune before it goes out. I'm quite excited because I've got this to try on it, which is a megaphone. The customer mentioned that he would like to hear the car more, so this should be quite interesting when it's fitted. We're going to run this on the engine as well, so we can hear it and see what it sounds like. I'm thinking it'd be quite good that. So I'll do a bit of a walk around on the engine, talk about a few new things that we tried and changed, and then I'm going to do something a little different. We're going to do a bit of a talk about an engine, and basically I've asked one of my friends for some feedback about my YouTube videos. Thanks for everyone that subscribes, because we've now got to 1,000 subscribers, so effectively I'll get like £1 a month or something from YouTube for my efforts, which is great news. I can't retire yet, but I don't really want to, so anyway. What I'll say is we're going to do a talk about just touching on how the engine works really. I use loads of terms when we're dynoing, like it's hanging on well or it's fallen off the edge of a cliff and all this, and I'm going to try and do in simple terms a bit of an explanation as to what I'm on about. So you're going to have to endure that before you get to see the engine on the dyno at the end running. So I'll grab the camera now, do a quick walk around on the engine, and then we'll talk about the exhaust system and how the engine works with the camshaft and its torque and horsepower, and then we'll do the video on the engine. Right. So this is the 1150, and pretty much same as the other 1150s I've done. We have got a new Wilder cam profile in, which is really sweet, and it's still working from like 5,000 RPM, which is great. So it's not completely unfriendly. Obviously it's the steel cranked engine with the steel longer rod. We've got the two spacer plates. The first one is for the rod length, the second one is for the stroke. So that's all standard, and then to what we've done before, obviously got the spacer plate like we talked in part 1, where we've got the longer valves. Something that's a little bit different on this engine is I've been trying to up the water speed. So we used to use like a heat exchange unit on a sandwich plate that went between the oil filter and the oil filter housing, but the water had to go in and come out, so I was concerned it was slowing the water down. So basically we've fitted one of these Mocol straight through coolers, which offers no restriction to the water flow. So we've got the cold water coming from the radiator returning cold. Obviously that goes through the cooler, and then these two -10 hoses, these are sandwiched on a sandwich plate on the oil filter housing. So basically the oil is cooled by the water before the water goes into the engine to cool the engine. And doing this setup, we're running about 25 degrees hotter on the oil than the water. So if we end up at 80 degrees worst case, water temperature will see 100-105 degrees oil, which this modern oil we're using, the Miller's 1060 CFS, it's supposed to be good for 140 degrees, but obviously with the Imp we never want to go there because it'll just die. Anyway, so standard sump, got one of our baffle plates on it. Lovely Will Parry exhaust manifold, one of his equal length 4:2:1s, which is working really nicely. Obviously this is one of Will's 105 decibel silencers as well, with repackable sensor in it, but we're going to send him out with the megaphone, sorry, because that's what he wants. And then obviously we've got a pair of 45mm Delautos, we talked about them before. All that's working really well. So we'll come away from this now and we'll go into the room and have a little chat about how it all works. Right, okay, we're going to talk about the engine and how it works in simple man terms, because I'm a simple person. Right, where we're going to start at is the engine. It's just a pump, a big air pump. So I've got this cylinder head here, which isn't actually an Imp one, as you can guess. It's got 16 valves, but it was just hanging around, and I thought we can use this to demonstrate the overlap on the valves. And then we've got an exhaust manifold here, which isn't a Will Parry one, but it is an exhaust manifold with collectors on it, so we can describe how that works. So basically, going back to the videos and stuff that I've mentioned, the engine hangs on. So what I'm trying to talk about there is I'm trying to talk about how the engine carries on producing horsepower even after peak torque. So if you think of the torque as the strength of the push, and then the RPM, the amount of times it's going bang in a minute, so the higher the RPM is the amount of times you're getting that strength. And I'm really sorry for the people that are educated in this area and understand it far better than me, but I'm trying to make it so everybody who's touched on the channel can understand where I'm coming from. So what I'm trying to say is, you've got the torque, which is obviously the strength of the push, and then we've got the bang and the amount of times, which is the RPM. So if we've got, I don't know, if we've got 50 foot-pound of torque, but we've got it at 10,000 RPM, it's not a lot of torque, but because we've still got it at 10,000 RPM, we end up with a really good horsepower figure. So speed is everything with these engines. The more times you can make them go bang in the cylinder, the more energy you can get out of them in theory. That's why in the late 90s or whatever, with the F1s, before they capped it all, they were doing like 18,000 RPM, because they realised that the way to make them produce more power was to make them do more bangs per minute. So what we'll talk about is, as the thing goes faster, the more speed the engine gains. We have to start things happening earlier, like the advance on the ignition. We talk about the advance, so obviously it takes time for the burn to happen. So that's why we have ignition advance, which means we're actually sparking the ignition before the piston gets to the top of the cylinder. And the idea of this is that by the time the gases start to expand, the piston has gone past the top dead center point and is just ready to be pushed down the bore. So we're getting maximum energy from the burn. So another thing I wanted to say was, you'll probably all have heard of like the suck, squeeze, bang, blow. Well, I don't want you to think of it as that. Think of it as it's the air is being pushed into the engine by atmospheric pressure, because we are under 1 bar atmosphere. We learnt that, didn't we, at school in physics, you know? So we're all under 1 bar, and that's why when I say it's a good air day today, what I'm talking about is I'm talking about the barometric pressure. So if we've got a high pressure day, you've got good weather, you get high pressure. That means it's in millibar, so we might have 1,020 millibar air pressure, which is a good air day. So basically the air's being pushed into the engine. But what I want you to think of it is, rather than in the description that people say suck, squeeze, bang, blow as the piston goes up and down, so the inlet valve would open and they're saying that the air is sucked into the bore, think of it as the piston merely creates a vacuum. So as the piston goes down, it creates a vacuum, and the air, this is the inlet side, is being pushed in by atmospheric pressure. That's why engines are so sensitive to things like a big valve head and a ported inlet system and bigger chokes in the carburetors and bigger butterflies, because the air isn't being drawn in, it's being pushed in by atmospheric pressure. So moving on from that, what we'll then go on to say is, like, I don't know what, I'm imagining most of the people that watch my channel are of a similar age to myself. So if you remember, like back in the day, everyone had XR2s, XR3Is, all the fast forwards, and the ones that could afford it would have like a Kent cam in it, and it'd be 15 horsepower up on standard, but it'd feel like 100 horsepower because you'd say it comes on cam at 4,000, or you can really feel the kick, you know, it spins the wheels in second gear and all this sort of talk. Well, why is that? So what we'll talk about now is when the engines come on cam, what is it that's actually happening? So what's happening is things are becoming more efficient. So to make things more efficient, obviously what we're trying to do here is we're trying to fill the cylinder full of good fresh air and fuel so that we get a good bang. Obviously the faster it goes, the harder it becomes to do that. So what some clever people a long time ago decided was they'd have something called overlap. So the piston obviously goes at halves, well, the crank and the rods go, how should I describe this easily now? Right. Once when the piston comes to the top, the valves will be shut, that'll be the firing stroke. And once when the pistons come to the top, it'll be on the exhaust stroke. So as it gets to the top of the bore, it's pushing the exhaust gases out of the cylinder. But there's so much energy in the exhaust gases, we have something called overlap, which is where basically on the exhaust stroke, the inlet valves are open and the exhaust valves are open. So we talk about a lift figure at top dead center. We might say it runs 170 thou of inlet lift and 150 thou of exhaust lift at top dead center on the exhaust stroke. And what they're trying to do basically is, there's so much energy in the burn and it's in such a rush to escape and go down the exhaust, that if they leave the inlet valve open a little bit at the same time as the exhaust valve's open, you can cause like a backdraft. And what that does is, we might hear the engines when they come on cam, the inlet becomes very strong, the noise, it's barking, you know, the engine wants to draw fresh air in. It's what I say, draw, it's creating more of a vacuum for the air to be pushed in at atmospheric pressure. So anyway, this is where we go into the exhaust. So you can see we've got like a traditional 4:2:1 with a collector. So the way it's been described to me is, every pulse, every fire impulse that we get, think of it as a polo mint. So we've had the bang, it's now, the exhaust valves are open, the pistons come up to the top again, the exhaust gases are going out the exhaust port. So we want to cause a backdraft so that we can get some scavenge effect, some air drawn in through the inlet, so we get a really good fill. Some of the fresh inlet fuel and air will go out the exhaust, so it's not very efficient. That's why a road car doesn't have very much overlap and it has its torque really low down in the RPM range, because they're after efficiency. Whereas in a race engine, we're not really fussed about efficiency, we just want power. So if you think of the exhaust pulses as like polo mints, so you've got the polo mints, you've got 1, 3, 4, 2, and the reason why I want all these levels to be tuned in the correct volume and size is, we want all these polo mints to follow into the collector one after the other. We don't want two arriving at the same point, because then they get a bit of a crash and you wouldn't get the scavenge effect. Really good backdraft so that we can get a really good cylinder fill, and hence, obviously, all these things work at different RPM. I mean, some real clever people have done variable length exhaust so that they can enhance the scavenge effect all across the RPM, but we won't bother going into that too much now. So yeah, a little bit of a touch on there. So when I'm going on about it on the dyno, you know, saying, oh, it's hanging on well, this one, or it's fell off the edge of a cliff, what I'm trying to say is, we've gone past the peak efficiency of the engine and it's no longer getting a good cylinder fill, so hence the torque is falling off. And then obviously, if it falls off too much, the torque, even though the RPMs are increasing, we then see the power fall off as well. All right, I hope I haven't gone too deep into that there, and you understand a little bit more if you were a novice and just interested in the engines and how they worked. Right, we'll get the other one warmed up now, and we'll do a bit of a video on that running on the dyno. Okay, we're on with the Dream machine, or the Dream engine. It's very friendly. This throttle response is really good, considering this camera is the wildest camera do. So we're going to load him up. It's all warm, we've been here before, so we know what can happen. You should see, I've just overfilled the header tank with water, so if you see water out the top, don't be alarmed. I run an open header tank because it's the easiest way of seeing if we have a wheel string issue, because as soon as we get cylinder gases escaping from the cylinder into the coolant jacket, you'll see it straight away quite violently coming out the top of the header tank. So I always run an open header tank, in case you think I've forgotten to put the lid on. Right, let's load them up. So it's 7.2, holding 90 foot-pound, really steady. We'll just bring him down a bit more. Try and get a 6.5 or a 6,000 figure. Oh, not put the switch on the dyno, 1 second. Has a little booster pump that pushes more water through a dyno. It wasn't on. Oh, that's better. You see there at 5,500, it's cut 90 foot-pound, 6,000, 90 foot-pound. Lovely, absolutely lovely. Right, just put some figures down there. Okay, we'll go to 85 of it, so I'll back the dyno off now, and then we'll put the megaphone on and see if we can deafen ourselves. Okay, we'll start a bit around, I reckon. Start at about 6 and we'll run to 85. Just let the dyno let go. It's really slow to respond, the dyno. Go past 7.5. I'll have to back the water off. Give me a second. Okay, back to try again. I'll back the dyno right off now, so we're holding about 93 foot-pound there at 7. 7.5. Oh, little miss. Falling off at 8. 8.5. There's 9 there. We'll have a look into that. Right, okay, got the air filter on now, a bit more its completed state. I'm going to see how it affects it, if at all. Go back to peak torque now. Nearly 95, 93 at 7. That's great. Right, we'll just what we're going to do is we're going to put the megaphone on and have a listen to it. Just bring it down and just check peak torque a bit lower down. Let's hope we get 6,500. Gonna give us a 6,000, nice steady 90 there. Perfect. Right, we'll put the pipe on and we'll have to listen to it with the megaphone on. Right guys, it's really loud. I love it. I absolutely love it. I won't bother doing any more commentary because you won't be able to hear me when this thing goes.